Have you ever wondered about the truly groundbreaking moments in human history? The invention of the wheel, the discovery of fire. Well, hold on to your seats, because today we're diving into a story so monumental, so earth-shattering, it will probably put you to sleep. This is the extremely boring history of how humanity learned to dry bricks. Yes, you heard that right. Bricks. Not epic battles, not royal sagas, but wet, squishy bricks. Picture this. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors had just started getting the hang of this whole civilization thing. They were building huts, walls, and other important stuff. But they faced a colossal problem. They'd mix up some clay, lovingly mold it into a rectangular shape, and stack them up to build a wall. And then ... splat. The whole thing would collapse into a goopy mess. Why? Because the bricks were wet. This was a crisis of epic proportions. The walls refused to stand. The new community center looked more like a mud puddle. Something had to be done. So the village elder, a wise old man with a very long beard and probably too much time on his hands, called for an emergency meeting. The entire village gathered, their faces etched with concern. The great brick dilemma was the only thing on the agenda. The meeting began. One villager, let's call him Oog, stood up and declared, "I have an idea. We can hang the wet bricks on the branches of the trees to dry." A murmur of excitement rippled through the crowd. Genius. But then another villager, a practical woman named Aga, pointed out a fatal flaw. What about the birds? They'll land on our bricks, do their business, and our walls will be ... decorated. The crowd groaned. Oog's idea was out. Next, a fiery young inventor named Zorp jumped up, his eyes blazing with passion. "I know, let's use fire. We'll build a massive bonfire and toss the bricks in. The heat will dry them in no time." The villagers looked at each other, intrigued. Fire was powerful. But then the village elder stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Zorp, my boy, if we put the bricks in a giant fire, won't they just burn to a crisp? And also, won't we burn to a crisp trying to get them out?" The logic was undeniable. Zorp's idea was also a bust. The meeting dragged on. Hours turned into days. Days turned into, well, a very long time. They debated using giant leaves as fans. They considered asking the wind nicely to blow on the bricks. They even thought about getting a mammoth to sit on them, hoping its body heat would do the trick. Every idea was more complicated and less effective than the last. The morale of the village was at an all-time low. It seemed humanity was destined to live in wobbly mud huts forever, just as everyone was about to give up and go back to living in caves. A young child who had been quietly playing with a mud pie in the corner looked up at the sky. "Why don't we just put them in the sun?" Silence. The entire village froze. They all slowly turned their heads to look at the big, bright, hot thing shining in the sky. The sun. It made the ground warm. It made their skin warm. Could it possibly make bricks warm? And dry? It was a revolutionary concept. So simple, so elegant. Why hadn't anyone thought of it before? After what was probably an unnecessarily long period of stunned silence, the villagers decided to give it a try. They took a wet brick, placed it on the ground directly under the sun's rays, and they waited. They waited, and they watched. And slowly, magically, the brick began to change. The dark, damp clay turned a lighter shade. The surface hardened. After a few days, it was a solid, sturdy, and most importantly, dry brick. A roar of jubilation erupted from the village. They had done it. They had conquered the challenge of wet bricks. People were dancing, cheering, and high-fiving up. "We've found the solution," they cried. It had only taken them several hundred years of meetings and failed experiments. Just then, from the edge of the village, an old traveler named Dev Bloy, who had been passing through and watching the whole spectacle, cleared his throat. "Wait a minute," he said, scratching his head. "You guys are just figuring this out now. You didn't know the sun makes things dry." The entire village fell silent again, perhaps a little embarrassed. And so, my friends, that is how humanity acquired the incredible, the profound, the mind-numbingly boring technology of sun-drying bricks. A true testament to our species' ability to overthink the simplest of problems. The end. Thanks for sticking with me through this thrilling tale. If you enjoy learning about the less than exciting moments that shaped our world, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more extremely boring histories. See you next time.